What it do, golf fans? Welcome back to the Turn Dogs Golf Podcast. This is Liam. Alongside me is Jack. Jack, we had a great week in golf. Genesis Scottish Open, closest thing to the Open that we're going to get until this week. Overall, what'd you think of the week?
That was the worst intro I've ever heard in my life, but we're gonna run with it. Don't cut that out.
I meant to say
Awesome
closest
week.
thing to links golf until we get to the Open, but words were a little difficult. It's all right.
Oh,
Long day at
it
work.
happens. It was awesome. Shout out Robert McIntyre. I really thought that Adam Scott was gonna pull it off with about an hour to go, and then Robert made that one of the best eagles I've ever seen. Coming down to the wire with guys like Rory McIlroy, Sahith, Morikawa. Sorry, excuse me. I just choked like Ludwig Aubert. And the, guys like that, it was really cool to see. I love events where it comes down to the wire. So seeing that was awesome. But McIntyre, clutch.
Yeah, there was a while there where between Robert McIntyre, Ludwig Gobert, Adam Scott, Morikawa, I mean, even Rory at a certain point, I was like, is he going to somehow do some Rory-esque thing and like shoot up leaderboards?
Yeah,
Didn't
we
happen.
started off like 200 through his first five, and then just kind of plateaued for like the next 10 holes.
Yeah, I mean, with Rory, I would not have taken him out of the chances, that's for sure. But yeah,
Yeah.
Robert McIntyre, Eagle 16, birdie 18, the Ludwig Gobert choke show on the back nine there. So it was an overall pretty impressive setup. I'm gonna run through a couple of notable guys that ended up missing the cut last week. Any of them that stand out to you, or any other guys that maybe stood out that missed the cut or made the cut and did better than you anticipated, feel free to shout them out. But Hideki Matsuyama miscut, Hoagie miscut, Seb Straka miscut, Keith Mitchell miscut, Jordan Spieth miscut, Billy Horschel miscut, Will Zalatoris miscut. Mark Hubbard finally missed his first cut of the year on the number of all things. And then Denny McCarthy played pretty poor, pretty poverty style right there. That was an ugly play from Denny. So
Yeah. A couple other guys that for me stood out. Tom McKibben, he
yep.
was in the top 20 guys in terms of pricing and arguable to win. So it was a little disappointing to see him miss the cut right on the number. That was honestly really interesting because he was one of the guys that I was also looking at this week, and it was very scary. And I know you said Jordan Spieth missed the cut, which was really interesting because coming into the week, this is one of his best majors. So it's so interesting. That stuff that's in my head right now.
Yeah, Jordan is not in peak form, needless to say. You kind of got into some of it, but I know last week we gave out a lot of guys that were kind of DP World Tour, Asian Tour, etc. type of players, or maybe just lower tier PGA guys. Here are some of the highlights of our hits and misses. So, low price guys that hit: Romain Lengescu, third place; Victor Perez, I think he finished like 10th; Nikolai Højgaard, we talked about him, he was like 20s. Thorbjorn Olesen finished, I want to say, right around T40.
Thank gosh.
Uh, Jungwon Lee finished about T45. And then Justin Guerrier, who was one of the ones I called out at the end, made the cut and then finished like T68. So it wasn't pretty, but I want to say he was like $5,200 last week. And so all things considered, you take that. As far as misses, Jack highlighted the first one. Tom McKibben was a tough miss for us. And then I mentioned Jordan Smith. I told you guys I wasn't going to him, but I included him in there. So he was another guy that missed the cut. I'm not including him in a miss, but Sebastian Soderberg, you'll find out here in a minute, was a high portion of our bets, lineups, everything else last week. He did withdraw. I can't speak for Jack, but because he withdrew before Wednesday, I did, some quick rotations with one or two guys. But I stuck with all the guys that were otherwise already discussed on our podcast. I didn't throw out any other like random guy that you guys didn't already know about. So
Yeah, same for me. Jumping into it really quickly because we have a major and no one wants to hear about the Scottish Open again. I did win money in DraftKings thanks to, as Liam correctly mispronounced, Jungwon Lee, not Junwon Lee, 5,400. Aaron Rai, thank you very much. Rory McIlroy, thank you very much. And Ludwig Gobert, thank you very much. Take it to the bank.
what's a Turn Dollars Golf Pod episode if Liam doesn't mispronounce like a half dozen names in it though? Like that's the flair of the podcast. Like it's so boring if you just pronounce everything properly.
If you
Like
guys
that's
are listening on Spotify or another podcast, first of all, thank you. But also feel free to watch on YouTube where you can see how pale we really are, and that will give you every indication why Liam's mispronouncing.
Yeah, that works. My DraftKings, I had Xander T15, Colin Morikawa T4, Hideki, who missed the cut on the number. I had Bernard Wiesberger. I swapped to Tom McKibben. That was miscut. I had Sebastian Soderberg. I swapped to Andrew Novak. Novak finished T70. And then how do you pronounce his name? Lee.
Jungwon Lee.
Thank you. T46.
Jungwon. No, I was using your Jungwon Lee.
There you go. Yeah, so he was T46. How'd your FanDuel lineup do?
FanDuel lineup was even better. It actually worked really well. I had Rory Xander, Ludwig, and then Jungwon Lee at 7,200 rounded it off. So my two big misses on both were Tom McKibben and Callum Hill, both on the number. So it wasn't like, yes, obviously I lost 4 rounds between the two of them, but it wasn't like guys had like -8 points. So it helped me a lot.
There you go. On FanDuel, I kind of crushed it. I finished 10th overall in single entries. So I 10x'd my money. So I hope you guys follow it on FanDuel because I did quite well, all things considered. I had Xander, T15, Colin Morikawa, T4. I had Tom Kim. I actually should have kept Tom Kim, and I probably would have finished top 5. I swapped to Tommy Fleetwood. He finished T34. Aaron Rai finished T4. I had Sebastian Soderberg. I swapped to Thorbjorn Olesen, who finished T39. And then Jungwon Lee finished T46. So if I picked Tom Kim instead of Fleetwood, I would have had him finish T15 as well. So I probably would have bumped up like half a dozen spots.
Still complaining about top 10. It is what it is.
I know. I only 10x my monies, guys. I'll do better next time. I'll try and make it a little bit more.
Speaking of making more money, we're going to jump right into bets where if you followed either of ours, you're welcome because as a unit, we went up over 3 units altogether. For me specifically, I hit on Aaron Rai, 43rd or better, almost won by 40 spots. Xander top 20, Colin top 30, Tommy Fleetwood top 40. We had Thorbjorn Olesen top 40 at plus 190 was a hit. Thomas Dietrich to plus 120 at top 40 was a win. And if you follow us on socials, I said that was the easiest free money possibly in the entire week, and that smacked. And then Jungwon Lee missed by 1 shot to crack. And it was listed at plus 333. I found it at plus 555. So if that hit, I would have retired.
There you go.
1.6 units up on the week. I forgot to say that.
Yeah.
Bringing us to a slight total of 48.58 units up on the year.
Only 48.5. I'm so disappointed in you. It's all right. You'll do better next time. No, all right. For my bets, I had 6. I went 3-3. Benny on top 40. That was a loss. Tom Kim top 30. That was a win. Hideki Matsuyama top 30. That was a loss. Rory McIlroy round 1 top 20 plus 150. I still don't get that. That was a win. I had Xander round 1 top 20. That was a loss. And then I had Morikawa top 20 round 1. That was a win. That was plus 200, which is crazy. It still seems high. But overall, plus 1.41 units on the week. And I'm now at positive 7.24 units. So just trying to hang out and get up to 10 units before the end of the year. And then that way, nothing, a little shrug off the shoulders, 10 units up. No complaints.
Let's go. Yep. And then I'm just going to cruise through my wild card, which unfortunately at plus 2,724 missed. Callum Hill, Jungwon Lee, Tom McKibben, Xander Schauffele, all top 40 parlay. Unfortunately, that did not hit.
Yeah. I'm in the same boat. I had Tom McKibben and Sebastian Soderberg. I swapped it to Tom McKibben and Andrew Novak. Didn't matter. Either way, it would not have hit because Tom McKibben missed cut. So doesn't really matter how that all happened.
Awesome. And then we're going to jump into winners. I'm just going to go quickly. I had Xander Schauffele at T15. Go ahead, Liam.
Yeah, your other one was Tom McKibben. He missed the cut. My first one's Colin Morikawa, who finished T4. So that was great. And then I took Robert McIntyre, who ended up winning. So that is now 6 weeks in a row with either a winner or a runner up. And if you just want winners, I think we're 4 in the last 6 weeks. So
bingo. So follow along. I have nothing else to say. Scottish Open. Congratulations, Robert McIntyre. That was great. Let's get into a major. And as you guys can see, I'm wearing my St. Andrews Old Course shirt. Had to bust it out. And I am in my new place. So everything looks wanky. Janky. Now I'm using English terminology already.
Janky. Yeah, there you go. No, so we are at the Open. At Royal Troon this week, this is a par 71 totaling 7,390 yards. Last year's winner was Brian Harmon. Now, again, last year's Open was not played at Royal Troon. Last time it was played at Royal Troon was 2016. The winner that year was Shane Lowry. So if you want course history as far as that goes, look back at 2016 for this specific course. And there's a decent amount of guys that played back then on the Open and that are in this field again. So you'll be able to find a little bit of correlation. Royal Troon is heavy on around the green play. It ranks third in all tournaments this year on the PGA Tour. It also ranks top 10 in both driving distance and driving accuracy. The spot that has the least correlation, putting. So you don't have to be a good putter to play well here. But you do need to have good driving distance and accuracy and be decent around the green, which feels like basically everything else in the bag except for the putter then. Wind and Mother Nature are gonna probably play an effect this week. They almost always do at Opens. If there's no weather, then the guys are probably going to shoot 25 to 30 under because that's just how it works. But don't worry, I'm sure Wind and Mother Nature are going to have a bigger effect than you think. Another thing, Royal Troon does have some of the smallest greens of any course on tour. A lot of the greens that are kind of shaped like a balloon, so they have a really narrow front with bunkers on the fronts, and then it kind of widens out in the back, and kind of falls off as well. A lot of not false fronts, but like false backs. I don't know how else to describe that.
They're called bowls.
Thank you. One example of this is the 8th green. This green is one of the smallest on tour at 2,400 square feet. Just to kind of put that into perspective, the average PGA Tour green is roughly 6,000 feet. I kind of hope that they put this as like a featured hole in the coverage because it'll be really fun to watch all the guys struggle trying to hit this green, especially if there's like 20, 30, 40 mile an hour winds. So that'll make it quite fun. But yeah, driving distance, driving accuracy, around the green play. Those are my 3 highlights. All right. Into the DraftKings lineups we go, or pricing, I guess.
Yeah, we have a big group. Honestly, let's just loop the top 6 guys, which is 12,800 at Scotty Scheffler, Bryson DeChambeau, Rory McIlroy, Xander Schauffele, Jon Rahm, and Ludwig Aubert. So first off, what the heck is Jon Rahm doing in here? Listen, don't get me wrong. Great player. Yeah, he played well last week, finished with 10th, and the week before he finished 3rd in Nashville. Could not be less close in any sort of realm to the course we're playing this week. Prior to that, withdrew PGA, 53rd at Houston. If you've watched him and you see a bunch of clubs, he's in his own head. He's mad all the time. Yeah, he has amazing Open history. His average finish at the Open has been like 36. But for a guy, if you're telling me at 10,400, and I know you have a different opinion of Jon Rahm, 100%. I understand why people would want to go to him, but just in regard to DraftKings pricing, 10,400 for a guy that is in his own head and has not been playing well, and you take a look at his scores, he's only had 1 round in his last like 15 rounds under 68. So it's not like he's also scored, which is scary to me.
Yeah, I one of the things that I always think about with the Open is that it's very volatile. The Open is arguably the most volatile major in all of the 4 majors. There's always some quote unquote unknown golfer or lesser known golfer if you're Jack that ends up doing way better than the rest of them. There's guys that shouldn't make the cut that do. And I think Jon Rahm is probably going to be one of those cases where he hasn't played good at any of the majors so far this year. He did withdraw at the US Open, but he's got 2 straight top 10 or better finishes on Live. And again, he has 3 top 11 or better finishes in his last 4 Open starts. There is the injury concerns. I think it's a dangerous play because he's going to be extremely low owned. Nobody's going to Jon Rahm at 10,400. He will be probably less than 4% owned, which if you need high upside, if you are in one of these single entry, winning $1 million and only the top like 5 people place, Jon Rahm is a viable option because he has the potential to do this. He will always have a good enough game to get to that point. It's just what kind of Jon Rahm will show up.
It's scary.
Yeah.
Talking about guys that I really like. Well, number one, it is Rory McIlroy. He did look incredible at the Scottish Open. 4 rounds in the 60s, worst round being a 68. And he's had 7 of his last 8 rounds, which is the Scottish Open and the US Open, under 70. Think about that. That's ridiculous. Taking a look at his major form in the Open, his last 2 starts were 6 and 2. And then in Scottish PGA Tour or links courses, he has 4th win and 4th. So this guy loves these type of tracks. I think he's honestly very fairly priced. I think Bryson and Scotty are horrifically priced. But I think Rory McIlroy and Xander Schauffele alike are actually very reasonable. And I think you can target both those guys happily.
Yeah, I think both those guys are rival options. I mean, some of the notes I have on Rory here are identical. There's no reason to believe that based on Rory's game, he doesn't have a chance to contend this week, and I think he could very well win. He's also $1,400 cheaper than Scotty, which is spectacular. Outside of losing strokes putting at the Scottish Open, Rory hasn't lost in a strokes gain metric since April at the Masters, which is kind of crazy. He also has a spectacular record when it comes to Open Championships. He's got 6 top 10 finishes in his last 8 starts. He also finished T5 here at Royal Troon in 2016. So he's played well at this course specifically. If you want Xander notes, Xander's identical to Rory in a lot of the same statistical categories. The major difference between Rory and Xander is the consistency. When it comes to Open Championship finishes, Xander's been more consistent as far as T20 to T30 finishes. With really only 1 finish within the top 10. So I think Rory has a bit more stability there. So I kind of like him $200 more, but I understand if you want to go to Xander. Do you want me to go over my notes here on Scotty and Bryson?
Sure, because I have some strong takes.
All right. So Scotty Scheffler, we all know he's the #1 golfer in the world. He's spectacular in almost all the aspects of the game. I'm going to point out his history, though, at Open Championships as one of the few quote unquote weaknesses that he has outside of his putter. He has finishes of 8th, 21, and 23, which I understand is not really bad, but like in Scotty terms, anything outside of the top 10 this year feels like a failure, especially when he's $1,300 more than everybody else. All of those finishes really kind of came as a result of a super poor putting performance. He's also lost nearly 7 strokes during those 3 finishes at the Open. The counterpoint is he gained with the putter in 9 of his last 10 starts, only losing at the US Open. So again, he's viable. I'm not going to tell you not to play Scotty Scheffler because he's the best golfer in the world right now. But for $1,400 less, getting Rory, who I feel like is a quite identical golfer, seems like there's a way to kind of get past Scotty without needing him in your lineup this week.
Well, you said you're not going to tell people not to play Scotty. I'm going to tell people not to play Scotty because just exactly like you had said, his average finish is 17.3 and he hasn't played golf in almost a month. Then you take a look in his other finishes on links courses in the last, 5 or 6 years, his average finish there is over 30. So you're taking a look at 12,800. Granted, I'm not saying he's not the greatest player in the world and right now looking like the greatest player of this generation by 3 lengths of dominoes, but he hasn't played golf in a long time. He missed out on the Scottish Open, which is a lot of times what these great players take advantage of to get used to the wind, the territory, the greens, the grain, the sand, the whole lot. And now you're taking into account that his average finish on all links courses is like 26. I am honestly terrified of any type of play with Scotty Scheffler at this price. Granted, he's probably going to finish 18th, but like 12,800 and you're finishing 18th compared to like a Rory McIlroy or Xander Schauffele, who have arguably that same floor, but even a better ceiling. And especially with that price, like you had said, those 2 guys I'm targeting way over Scotty Scheffler.
No, I agree. You don't really have to do much convincing on me. I'm big on Rory this week. So I'll talk quickly on here on Bryson. You could argue this is probably not the best layout for Bryson with the around the green play that you kind of need. But you could have said the same thing about the Masters, the PGA Championship, or the US Open. Again, I think he's going to be very viable this week. He has lost strokes gained around the green in 3 of his last 4 starts, which is slightly concerning, but I'm kind of willing to look past that based on the success he's had so far this season. He has had good Open Championship records with a T8. Or no, sorry, he had a bad Open Championship record with 1 T8 and 4 finishes outside of the top 50. So he played well in an Open Championship one time and basically struggled every other. I'll just quickly talk on Ludwig because that's one guy I haven't gotten to this week. Part of me loves him this week. Part of me scares him. The statistics are really going to be quite scary. He has lost strokes around the green in 6 of his last 10 starts, and he's struggling with finishing off chances for victories. basically ever since the Masters. I'm just avoiding him on that sense. He will probably play decent this week, but I just don't like the way I saw Sunday. He lost 4.7 strokes to the field on Sunday at the Scottish Open. And I just don't like that going into a major when he just had his second worst round in his career. Now, again, I know his career is quite young. He's basically been on tour like a year and 2 months, but that was the second worst round of his career. So I'm going to avoid Ludwig and let somebody else play with fire this week.
I'm going to take him. He finished fourth. And I think a lot of people, and granted, I know recency bias. I looked at Eric Cole the week before and I came into John Deere and I said, hammer him. I get recency bias. I think that this is going to be a really, really good week for Ludwig. You take a look at his open finishes. First Masters, second. First US Open, 12th. First PGA, wild miscut. But the Open, I think, actually serves him really, really well. He's coming into it with amazing form. I think this style of a track actually favors him really well with tee to green and good around the green play. Strokes gained around the green has always been a really good measure of his. He does have the ability to score in the, round one, round two, 64, 64, round three, 65. You take away, let's just say he has a 70. He's in contention coming in Sunday. Well, obviously he was in contention, but yeah. I think that much like Patrick Cantlay, we look at his closing and we say, oh gosh, that's scary. Don't play him. If Ludwig can go out and have 65, 66, 67, he's going to be top 20.
You kind of said it though. Like the same reason we didn't like playing Cantlay because he couldn't finish is the same reason I'm trying to get to as far as not wanting to play Ludwig. I'm not sitting here telling you he's missing the cut. I'm just sitting there saying I think he's probably finishing like T25, and the guy underneath him I think has a better chance of winning than almost anybody else in the field.
Whoa!
So
hot take, drop it in. Well, I'll lead it off. It's Colin Morikawa at 9,900, but bottoming this range is Brooks Koepka at 9K.
Yeah, I'm all in on Colin Morikawa this week. He's played great at majors all year with a T3, T4, and T14 respectfully. He's not lost in his strokes gained metric since April at the RBC Heritage. Over his last 36 rounds, Colin has been the fourth best golfer in the world. You could argue that it's Scotty, Rory, and Xander. You can maybe say Bryson, but I think Bryson and Colin Morikawa have been pretty even just outside of the victory that Bryson has. Maybe that's
what's your ranking?
Scotty, Rory, Xander, and then whether you put Colin fourth or fifth with Bryson.
Are you talking about for the full year?
Last 36 rounds.
Okay, I'll give you that. I was going to say you could probably throw a Ludwig in there because outside the PGA, I think he has every finish since the Sony is top 30.
Again, a lot of those guys though haven't missed a cut since all that stuff either. So it's really kind of cutting hairs. Colin's great off the tee. He's great around the green. He has spectacular approach play. He has mixed history at the Open, which I guess you could say is slightly concerning. But he has one here and he has two missed cuts. But again, I'm all in on Colin. That's why I kind of like him more than Ludwig, just because I think it makes more sense to save the $200 for an identical golfer with more upside.
Yeah. One guy or I'll talk about two guys that I really like. Number one is Terrell Hatch, third place on his last start, win in Nashville. But taking a look at his links history, it is remarkable. His last three Open starts have all been top 20, including a top 10. Also in links play, when he was in, he had the Scottish Open, and last year he finished sixth. He had the Abu Dhabi HSBC. Yes, that's a link style course for everybody. He finished seventh. He went to Alfred Dunhill Links, finished seventh, and then a bunch of other repetitions throughout that. His average finish in links course in the last decade is 22.9. That is remarkable. I think a lot of people are overlooking that just because obviously he plays on LIV. That's a steal. And Tommy frickin' Fleetwood, my God, he, much like Ludwig Aubert, did not have a great Sunday, and that took him out of the tournament, but he looked spectacular, and there were just a couple instances that took him out of contention that tournament. In the Open, his average finish is 36 here, and that includes two missed cuts. Every other links course in the last decade, taking into account, is 22.5. So at 9,300, you take all that data and compile it. Plus, he's on a freaking tear. He's a monster right now. That is a guy that I'm targeting. And if you put Viktor Hovland in your lineup, I don't know what's wrong with you.
Yeah, I'll talk on this. I've talked about Hovland for weeks now, saying that something's off and that he's bad around the green.
Yeah.
Most weeks I've been right. I think I've been wrong like 2 times all year, which great. I'm 15 for 17 as far as betting against Viktor Hovland. Perfect. Vic has lost strokes gained around the green in 9 of his last 10 starts. He's also losing on approach within his last 3 starts as well. Basically fade him and accept the consequences if he plays extremely well and finishes top 40. But honestly, if the odds haven't come out yet, I was about 3 seconds from clicking him to miss the cut. So I could see it. Um, I really don't think the odds will even be that good because it's so practical and it could happen so much.
I don't know.
Uh,
Victor Halva to make the cuts minus 400. So it's probably going to be plus 260.
if only I could make that a wild card, I would have. Again, they don't have him up right now. One guy I'll talk about, Patrick Cantlay. He's either going to win you big money this week or he's going to miss the cut badly. He hasn't played on tour in 3 weeks and he struggled for much of the year. But his best 2 starts were his last 2 starts, one of which was the US Open where he finished top 5. Also, this is the cheapest price we've seen Cantlay since the genesis of 2023. So it's been about a year and a half. He's not that bad of a golfer and he's at 9,100. He just feels like he's in a pretty good price point here, that there's lots of opportunity for kind of growth beyond that. His irons have come back into form. He's off the tee. He's playing well off the tee again. I think Cantlay is going to be an interesting option. And he has potential to win you big money if you need him, if you need the upside.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of people are also going to take a look at Brooks Koepka and see the success that he's had in majors. You
Yep.
take a look at the Open, 64th last year, 100th or it missed the cut in 2022, and then you take a look into other link style finishes that he's had, and he hasn't really played a lot. The
Yeah, he's not a
last time
links
he
guy.
played a PGA Tour or DP World Tour on a classified links track was 2021 outside of the Open. Doesn't have a lot of traction here. Now, granted, his finishing position with a 64th and a miscut over the last 5 or 7 years is still 32. So he's still doing fine. But for 9K and all of his last 3 finishes on Live have been outside the top 25. That's just not really looking good for me. And I really hate to say, but I might be fading Brooks Koepka for the first time in a major.
Is it sad I like a couple guys underneath him in the 8K range over him in terms of
No,
price
sir.
points?
Cam Smith, 8,900, all the way down to Wyndham Clark at 8K. I'm going to steal one guy because I know you're very high on another person.
Yeah.
Cam Smith is my guy in this
Hmm.
range. He has looked. Now, listen, we watched him at the Masters and we go, holy crap, this guy's back. We watched him at the PGA and we go, okay, this guy's not back. We
Yeah.
watched him at the US Open. We go, I don't know how to feel about this. Open. Here we go. Cam Smith, he won here and then Liv took him. The world took up a storm. He is one of the most consistent players. And when his short game on, his short game is on. He's coming into this with back-to-back top tens and some really good scoring. I think it's a really good play at 8,900 to take him. He's honestly one of the safest players, in my opinion, in terms of price point all throughout. I envision him breaking the barrier, which was like 39th place. You're telling me at 8,900 for that? That's not a steal. I really think it is.
So this is what I wrote on Cam Smith. I faded him most of the year with pretty good success. He did finish T6 at the Masters, but his off the tee game was rough. And with a T64 and T32 at the PGA and US Open, I am good to continue to fade him. He's lost strokes gained off the tee in 12 of his last 13 starts. That is across both Live and PGA. Regardless visibility around the green, if he is struggling to get there in the first place, he is not somebody I need in my lineup. That's what I wrote on him. Again, I worried with the off the tee game. If he cannot get to the green in order to use his putter until he's already putting for pars and bogeys, it's gonna be a tough for him to make the cut. I like guy right under him, Tony Finau. He's been in spectacular form as of recent. 3 straight top 8 finishes, one of which was the US Open. His putter has also been great for him during this stretch, gaining nearly 6 strokes around the green in those 3 events. His open history is good as well, with 3 top 20 or better finishes in 4 starts. So I'm quite happy with Tony Finau as far as if you want to get to him. I like him over Cam Smith. I like him over Brooks Koepka personally. I'll talk about Tom Kim as well. He posted one of his best ball striking weeks this past week, the Scottish Open, but he was about a 0 with the flat stick and the wedges. He's a viable option this week, but there's just going to be inherent risk with Tom. I think last week at the Genesis, if you held on to him, you did good. I don't know if I want to get back to him at the Open. I would probably just let him hang out here. And then I'll talk on Wyndham Clark, not the best of link style golfers. He finished T10 last week with basically 2 spectacular rounds and an awful round. His history at the Open isn't great either. Never finishing better than T33. I'm worried that he's going to struggle off the tee with a tough course and bunkers in play. I don't think it's worthwhile to get to Wyndham Clark at all.
Yeah, this range is a big hit or miss for me. I think there's a big asterisk because all of these guys are either going to be top 20 or
Yeah.
bottom 20, and there's like literally no middle ground. Wyndham Clark has made 2 major cuts in his career. Fitzpatrick should dominate this and has been okay this year. Lowry, former champion, but he just kind of teeter-totter. I'm very scared. And for someone that likes the percentage plays, because that's how I make my money, this is a very scary range for me.
Yeah, I think if I had to pick a top 3, I would probably go. I might go Finau, Lowry, Kim. I know I didn't talk about Lowry, but he's played great since he gained 9 strokes with the putter at the PGA Championship. He's also gaining in ball striking, and outside of a tough T49 at the Memorial, he's been playing pretty well. And again, he won here in 2016. So I'm comfortable going back to Shane Lowry. He'll play good in all the crappy weather that I'm sure that'll come through this week as well. So
yeah, I'll probably honestly go Cam Smith, Tony Finau, Tom Kim, but I'm
Makes
not
sense.
too high on that.
Makes sense.
All
Okay.
right, 7K, Jordan Spieth, all the way down to I went way too far. Matthew Pavon, and let me just say, there are 2 guys in this field that you should hammer, and 1 guy that you should fade like crazy. That's my take. The 1 guy that I think you should fade like crazy is Robert McIntyre.
Oh, well, all right. Then there's 3 guys in this range I would fade.
All right, well, Robert McIntyre. Let me tell you, Robert McIntyre is one of the best links course players of all time. And I don't say that lightly. You take a look at his finishes, win at the Scottish Open, top 20, I think it was 25 or 26 at Dunhill, runner-up in the Scottish Open the year before. He just has a really good track of links courses. In the Open, 21 and 19 had 2 top 10 finishes. Since then, 34 and 71. Now he takes a win at the Scottish Open, and he said he might not be legally able to drive because, and if you watched a bunch of his interviews, the Scottish Open was more important to him than the Open. And I think a lot of his mindset is actually like, I did my job. I won the event. I wanted to win. This is not somewhere I want to be. Granted, though, his price is so reasonable that it's also, I don't know. But the guys I'll talk on that I'm very high on. Actually, there's 3 I lied. Number 1, Cam Young.
Yeah.
Cam Young loves the Open. He has 2 starts in here, 8th and a 2nd, average finishing placement of 5, which is incredible. He's gained strokes everywhere across the field. He's also finally found form ever since we trashed on him at the US Open, back-to-back top 10s as well. I think if his driver can, basically it's just going to come down to the driver. If he can get it in the fairway and everything else about his game is average, he's 7,500, he's going to make the cut, which at this price point, that's all I want. That right? Is that fair? If he's just okay with the driver and average everywhere, he's fine.
Yeah, Cam Young's a great option there at 7,500. Again, he kind of figured out his short game in his last 3 starts, which led to some really good finishes. The last time he had his short game in that kind of good form, he won Rookie of the Year. And then again, Jack kind of talked on it. He's got really good history at the Open with an 8th and a 2nd. So I'm all in on him as well. I think he's going to be a great option. Jordan Spieth, we talked about him like 4 straight starts now. If you play Jordan Spieth, good luck, good riddance.
Whoa.
His putters basically caused him to be a shell of his former self. And the rest of his game isn't exactly making anything to make it much better. So I'm fading Jordan Spieth like the wind. And if he does well this week, then I'll take the hit. I know you talked about Robert McIntyre, but he also joined Scotty and Rory as the only guys that have won twice this year on tour, which is hilarious. He won at the Canadian Open and then he won at the Scottish Open, both of which are technically links style. I know the Canadian's not a true links, but it's like hybrid links. Don't come at me in the comments. Just look it up.
I'm going to try to segue that because that was just kidding. Jordan Spieth, because you didn't even let me finish the other guys I wanted to talk about.
Sorry.
In his last 8 Opens, he has an average placement of 12.1. This guy's a monster and he dominates the links tracks. I actually think that he looked somewhat okay until he got to the green last week. So I think if he can just have an average putter showing, it's not for this price unreasonable for the guy that has arguably the best Open history in the entire field. But the two guys I really want to talk about, number one is Corey Connors. Corey Connors has been quietly flying under the radar as, just one of the best players in the entire year, especially at 7,300. His last finish is basically since the Masters, he's had one finish outside the top 27. So he's been on a tear, one of the best ball strikers in the world. And I think he can really light this course up, especially at this price point. And then Aaron frickin' Rai being underpriced again.
Yep.
Let's just fourth at the Scottish Open, seventh at John Deere, second at Rocket Mortgage, 19th at US Open, top 40 at the PGA, Charles Schwab, Byron Nelson. I mean, this guy is on a tear. I'm honestly riding the hot hand, and I'm going to continue to basically ride this until it falls off the wheel.
Yep.
Just taking a look at all of his data across the board, he's just on he's just on a tear. And at this point last year, he was number one in greens and regulation on the entire PGA Tour, and he's trending in that direction right now.
Yeah, Aaron Rai is basically on fire on every portion of his game except for his putter, but even his putter is streaking well right now. And again, this is the kind of event that will work out really well for someone like Aaron Rai as far as that goes.
100%.
Justin Thomas, kind of a fool's gold play as far as last week. He shot 8 under on Thursday and was like tied for the lead or in the lead, and basically struggled the rest of the way. On Thursday, he gained 3.5 strokes ball striking and with the putter. Basically gave all of that back on Friday and then continued to lose it on the weekend. Ended up finishing T70. So it really wasn't that pretty. I don't want to go back to it because again, it's just so volatile. You don't really know what you're getting into. So a lot like Spieth, I don't care how good his finishes are at the Open. We're not getting back to that. Last guy I will talk about. Never mind, he's 6,900. I do think Akshay is an interesting option at 7,000. I don't have a ton of data on him, but he's in great form right now. I know he's got 2 top 10 or maybe top 5 finishes in his last 2 starts. And his iron play has been spectacular. So he's viable if you want to get to him at 7,000. But beyond that, that's all I got.
I'm just locking in another bet right now. So
Okay.
you can keep talking while I do this.
DJ 7,100. That's so sad. Oh, how the mighty have fallen.
Vijay Singh is in here?
No, Dustin Johnson. DJ.
Oh, Dustin DJ. I was like, hold the phone. Good for Vijay.
No. All right. Into the 6K range we go. I'm going to start with Davis Thompson up top at 6,900. All the way down to Emiliano Grillo at 6,000. The first guy that stands out to me is Sungjae Im. At 6,900. In his last 10 starts, Sungjae Im has 7 top 15 or better finishes. The only times he hasn't done that is basically at the 3 majors where he's missed the cut at all of them. I don't anticipate that trend is going to continue. I think Sungjae is making the cut, and at 6,900, that's really all you need from somebody of this price, especially considering he's probably at the absolute worst, he's your 4th guy, but he's probably your 5th guy at the end of the day. And again, I think Sungjae will do quite well this week. Next guy I'll talk about is 6,800, Louis Oosthuizen.
That's my guy.
I could stop if you want to go through him.
Louis Oosthuizen. He hit 61% of his fairways last week and is actually 3rd on live and fairways hit throughout the entire year. He's also 1st on the year in scrambling, and he was tied for 3rd in greens and regulation last week. Former winner of the Open, he has 2 other top 5 finishes. This guy is flying under the radar like crazy, and I actually think he's going to be a really sneaky play and probably going to win a lot of money for some hardcore bettors in these DFS plays.
Yeah, I think he's probably a top 15 player in the field this week.
I don't know if I'd go that far, but
it's close. I'll tell you that much. He's gotten he has 5 T13 or better finishes in his last 7 starts. In his past 8 starts, the only strokes gains metrics he lost is around the green twice. Outside of that, he's basically been an all-around green light player. And I anticipate that to probably continue this week. So I agree with you now, McKibben. Or on Oosthuizen. Do you want me to talk about McKibben, or are you going back to McKibben?
Well, obviously, I'm going back to Tom McKibben. I'll speak really quickly on him. He's a birdie monster, does have a tendency to fly some bogeys, but he missed a cut on the number with 269s. It wasn't like it was a bad showing. It was just a little disappointing. Prior to that, he's dominated pretty much everywhere across the globe and has had a really good stretch on links courses. I'm not worried about him missing the cut on the number at all, honestly.
There we go. You can go back to Thorbjorn Olesen this week as well. I think he'll be a fine option this week. Nothing fancy, but at 6,200, he'll probably make you a cut. Finish right around T50 and nothing too flashy, which is all you need. You want 60 seconds on Tiger?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's going to be a different perspective this time.
Okay.
I've already talked about how he's the greatest player in the world, and anybody that disputes that's an idiot.
Yep.
I watched him play a little bit of his practice round. I saw some pictures of him. He looks really leaned out. His face is back. I think whatever medicine, painkillers, probably some testosterone he was on, I think he's off. And when you actually get off that, you get a little more pliable and a little more flexible. I'm not saying he's going to go out and win. I just hope he makes the cut. But it was really interesting to see him leaned out. And I watched some of his swings. He looked okay. When I say loose, think about the fact that this guy's basically like
he's playing on like half an arm.
No, he's literally Pinocchio, but with a human body. Like he's literally made out of wood and metal and the whole lot.
Yeah.
He looked loose. Again, it's a kind of a reasonable price.
Yep.
It's scary to still go to, and I'm not saying he's gonna win, but compared to what we saw, and he hasn't been playing bad, it's just these terrible breaks that he keeps getting. I think okay, here's the thing though.
He's been playing bad.
I'm not saying
it's not all break. You just said he hasn't been playing that bad. It's been a lot there breaks. No, he's been playing bad.
I know, but
okay.
for a course like this, and again, I know Tiger hasn't had the best history at the Open, but loose Tiger, again, I'm putting loose in quotations. If he can hit what fairways, he hit at a very high percentage comparatively to like years prior, which is really good to see. He's one of the best iron player, probably the best iron player of all time. If he can make good contact and make smart shots, if he can get himself in greens and regulation, there's a chance that he makes the cut.
Right,
I think that's fair.
You want my stats on Tiger?
I don't, because you're just going to be a party pooper, and I'm tired of hearing you talk about Tiger negatively.
100%. I said y'all know about Tiger at this point. You root for him to win, and if you want to throw a bet on him, you throw a bet on him to make the cut. Throw whatever amount of money you'd feel comfortable losing, and that's fine. He's actually gained in strokes gained off the tee in 4 of his last 5 starts. He's got some distance behind him, which is really good, and then that's where it all ends. He's lost on approach and strokes gained putting in each of those 5 starts. He has 2 missed cuts, a 60th overall, or a last of the made cuts, if you want to go that route, a WD, and a near last place at 18%, or at 18th finish of 18th. Wow. In his last 5 starts. So it hasn't been pretty necessarily. But again, it's Tiger Woods. If you want to do it, you throw a small bet on him to make the cut, and you hope he wins. That's all. So I know Jack's probably not thrilled with that, but that's okay. Let's see. Outside of Tiger, you do have Romain Langescu here at 6,000. That is a viable option if you want to go back to it. So he did finish 3rd last week. I think he'll probably make a cut this week. I think there's going to be a lot of hype around him because he did so well last week. People might see that 3rd place and just automatically try and throw him in the bottom of their lineups. So I think there's smarter options. But he's there if you need him. So anybody else stand out to you in the 6K range? Are you going to Soderberg at all after the withdrawal or no?
Okay, so originally it was reported that Soderberg withdrew to illness.
Yeah.
Well, he did withdraw due to illness in the KLM. The last week they said it was an illness. Apparently it was a back injury.
Ooh.
So now that I know it's an injury, I'm off. Granted,
Yeah.
he can still pop off, but now that I know it's an injury, it scares me.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat there. With the injury, I'm probably passing on him. So okay. All right. With that, we named a few of the guys in this 6K range we like. Into the 5K range. This is where it gets fun.
Listen up, people.
Yeah, this is the bottom of the barrel. Nick Taylor all the way down to, I think John Daly's in this field. Yeah, John Daly's in this field. All
One
right.
of the greatest pictures of all time, the 19th hole. But Shubhankar Sharma, representing India in the Olympics, is going to be one of the guys I really like at 5,900 this week. Last time he played at the Open was last year, and he finished 8th. In his career at the Open, he has an average finishing placement of 36.7. He also has a couple top 40s, including 2 top 10s in other link style courses. He has also performed really well over the course of the year. 39th at the Genesis Scottish Open, 5th at the Italian Open, 44th at the KLM Open, which was last 3 starts. He also finished top 10 in Singapore throughout the year. So he has 12 for 15 unmade cuts, 2 top 10s, and played really well last week outside of like 2 missed shots that kind of, if you watch, stampeded him. 5,900 for a guy that's, I think, going to make the cut. I love it. I loved it. I'm all over this play.
Sharma's an interesting one for sure, but I respect it. I actually like 2 other guys at 5,900. Ben Griffin, who is the short game maestro. If you want to rely solely on the short game, I think he's a viable option. I liked him a little more last week when it came to Genesis as far as course layout. But it's not like we're going from apples to oranges this week. You know, there is going to be a few carryovers as far as links courses go. So I don't hate it if you go back to Ben Griffin. I also like John Catlin, who's there at 5,900 as well. He's been crushing it on the Asian Tour. He's finished 3rd or better in all 4 of his starts there on the Asian Tour, and he finished T23 last week on Live. There's very little strokes gain data on him, and it's very risky. It's a lot like the oh my gosh, I'm struggling on the 15-year-old who
Miles Russell?
Thank you. It's a lot like Miles Russell, the way we just have very little to almost no data on him. But the metrics look good that we can see. And I think he's a viable option if you wanted to do it at 5,900. So
Another guy I like,
Yep.
Sammy Valimaki.
Mm.
Yeah, he missed the cut last week. I'm fully aware. I know. But taking a look outside of that at his last, let's call it 7 finishes on link style courses. 6, 76, 10, 22, 16, 24. This guy is performing actually really, really sneakily on these link style courses and did make the cut here at last year's Open. He's 7 for 17 on cuts, but a lot of his misses have just been on courses that are going to like 35 under. And I think the projections are a little bit high in terms of what under par is going to be. I think at 5,600, you take a flyer on this. That way you can get like a Rory and Xander pairing at the top. I'm not encouraging it, but if you were to ask me, Jack, who's a guy down here that you could reasonably see make the cut? Shubakar and then Sammy Valimaki are, I think, 2 guys that I could see making the cut.
Interesting. Valimaki, I'm a little less intrigued on than, but I get it. The guy I'm going to mention who's my favorite option below 5,500, Matteo Manassero. Again, not a ton of data, but he's gained 25 strokes ball striking in his last 4 starts, which is crazy. His putter has been the biggest challenge, which again, I've talked about initially can kind of be mitigated here. A lot of guys that aren't great putters can still manage to do well here. He's also got 4 T15 or better finishes in his last 6 starts. So Matteo Manassero at 5,400. Again, if you like a couple guys up top and you need to save some big dough, I like him at that point. He's also the minimum price on FanDuel. If you want to go that route as well, he's my favorite guy below 5,500.
I like it. And of course, we're rooting for John Daly.
Yeah, if John Daly wins, I hope he's got like 12, Hooters girls on each arm, kind of a deal. That'd be hilarious. Heck, if he makes the cut, I hope that happens, but we'll see what happens there. So
it's gonna take a cart. Screw that.
Probably. All right. With that, Jack, let's get into DraftKings and FanDuel lineups. What's your DraftKings lineup looking like?
Xander Schauffele, 11,200. Ludwig Gobert, 10,100. Cam Smith, 8,900. Aaron Rai, 7,300. Tom McKibben, 6,500. And Shubhankar Sharma, 5,900.
There you go. For my DraftKings lineup, I'm going Rory McIlroy, 11,400. Colin Morikawa at 9,900. Tony Finau at 8,700. Aaron Rai at 7,300. Louis Oosthuizen at 6,800. And then John Catlin at 5,900. You could throw in any of the other 2 5,900 guys, whether it's Sharma or Ben Griffin, if you prefer those guys. They're all the same price.
And for my FanDuel, I actually really like this lineup. Xander Schauffele, 11,800. Tommy Fleetwood, 10,800. Cam Smith, 10,500. Corey Connors, 9,400. Aaron Rai, 9,500. And Thorbjorn Olesen, 8,000. I see that one confidently going 6 for 6.
Could go 5. I could see Cam Smith struggling, but I like everybody else in that lineup. And there's a lot of other good guys right around Cam Smith price point that if you swap to him, I'd like. For my FanDuel, Rory McIlroy, 12,200. Xander Schauffele, 11,800. Colin Morikawa, 11,300. Aaron Rye, 9,500. Guy I didn't really talk about, but he's known as a Lynx monster. Victor Perez at 8,100. And then Mateo Manacero at 7,500.
Awesome. Well, you might as well go ahead with your bets because it's going to take me a while to go through mine.
Yeah, Jack's got about 30. So that's going to be a minute. For my bets, I have 6. I'll go through them as quick as I can. First one, Ryan Fox is the top New Zealander over Kazuma Kabori, Daniel Hillier, and Michael Hendry. I'm going to be honest, before research today, I didn't know those last 2 names were golfers.
I was going to say, if you said Kazuma, I was going to throw a fit.
No,
here.
no. I know of Kazuma, but the other 2 I had to do research on today. So basically, if you're giving me Foxy over Kazuma at a -150 number, I'm going to take the guy that's played pretty consistently on the PGA Tour. My second bet is Matteo Manacero over Guido Migliozzi and Francesco Molinari. That is +160. There's a chance all 3 of those guys make the cut, and Matteo still wins by 12 shots based on how little we have on the other 2 guys. My third bet is Max Homa over Wyndham Clark at +120.
Gary,
I don't know why that's +120.
because Max has been struggling.
Well, so is Wyndham. I have Davis Thompson over Sam Burns at -120. I have Colin Morikawa top 20 at -130.
Stop. Before you say this next bet, I just want everybody to know I did not see this. I will be hammering 4,000 units on this next bet.
Yeah, this next bet made no sense to me. The funniest part is I threw it in 30 minutes before because I realized it was in there. Terrell Hatton over Victor Hovland is -110. I almost put 10 units on it, but I don't really have 10 units to go around because I'm only 7.25 up. So we'll see what Jack does with that one. But yeah, Terrell Hatton over Victor Hovland is probably my favorite bet of the bunch.
And what book was that on so I can lock that in?
Bet365.
Got it. Awesome. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you need popcorn, drink, bathroom break, this is the time to go because I have like 30 bets. I like most of them. So first and foremost, if you want my reasoning to the plays, I'm just going to read through them right now. Go follow us on TikTok, Turn Dog Golf. You'll probably have a little bit more detail, but just for time's sake, no one wants to hear 30 bet analysis. Yep. Tommy Fleetwood, top 30, -170. Cam Smith, top 40, -163. Aaron Rye, top 40 is -138. Colin Morikawa, top 20. I unfortunately got him at -140 instead of Liam's -130. Jon Rahm, 23rd or worse is -120. Scotty Scheffler, 7th or worse is -120. Cam Young, top, I know, especially because he hasn't hit it yet.
Yeah.
Cam Young, top 42 and ties is -120. Xander Schauffele, top 20 is -150. Ludwig Gobert, top 20 is -125. We have Tommy Fleetwood, Cam Smith, and Cam Young made cut parlay is +125. We have Xander Schauffele, Ludwig Gobert, and Tommy Fleetwood made cut parlay at -138. Doesn't make sense to me. Lock that in. Louis Oosthuizen top 40 is -130. Rory McIlroy and Xander Schauffele top 20 parlay at -105. Any 2 of Ludwig Gobert, Bryson DeChambeau, or Colin Morikawa top 10 is +145. I envision that probably being Ludwig and Colin.
Yep.
I have Scotty Scheffler and Rory McIlroy top 20 at -165. Bryson DeChambeau and Colin Morikawa top 20 is +135. Xander and Ludwig Gobert top 20 is +130. Xander, Scotty, and Rory top 20 parlay is +145. Colin Morikawa and Tommy Fleetwood top 20 is +210. Scotty, Colin Morikawa, and Cam Young top 40 is +115. Here's some crazy ones that I think everybody should lock in. Cam Young and Corey Connors made cut is -104. Aaron Rye and Cam Young made cut is -104. Corey Connors and Aaron Rye made cut is also -104. Now, since everybody in the comments loves to come at me, Jake, your bets are too boring. We want more high explosive bets. Oh, sorry that 50 units up on the year is not enough, guys. So, Shubhankar Sharma, top 40 is +225. Thornbjorn Olesen, top 40 is +210. Corey Connors, top 20 is +240. Cam Young, top 20 is +240. Terrell Hatton, top 30 is -165. Love it. And then Sammy Valimaki, top 40 is +330.
All right, there we go. Jack got through them all, guys. That was a lot of bets. Again, if you need to go through, basically Jack loves Xander, Ludwig, Cam Young, Aaron Rye, Corey Connors. A lot of those bets thrown in about 100 different ways.
Hell yeah.
All right, we going winners or wild card picks first?
Let's go wild cards. Mine is Jordan Spieth, top 20 is plus 230. I get we're not looking at the same Jordan Spieth. If there's one spot that Jordan Spieth can come through, it's at the Open. In the last 8 starts he's had at the Open, he has an average finishing of placement of 12.1, and in 32 rounds he's gained over 80 strokes total. So if there's any spot that I could see him coming back and coming into form, basically if he starts putting normally, we're going to see a top 20 finish. If he doesn't, he might as well start taking a flight and looking at fishing spots.
There you go. For my wild card pick, I took a fun one. Colin Morikawa, Tony Finau, and Aaron Rai top 20 parlay is plus 1,131. So fun times. I think Colin's probably the safest of those three to get in there. If you just want to do one of the other ones and maybe not both, I think those odds are still plus like 300 or plus 350. So that's a viable option too if you want to go that route.
Love it. And going into winners where we've hit 4 of our last 6 weeks. And again, everybody's watching. We don't do what everybody else does and just yells 5 names each and, oh, John Rahm, Roy, blah, 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 blah. We do one time a year. So strap in, ladies and gentlemen. Give me my pre-year prediction was Xander Schauffele. So if you watched our first episode of the year, we highlight what we're looking forward to. Our predictions, it was Xander. Give me Rory McIlroy. Give me redemption. Give me tears on the 72nd hole. Give me everything. I love everything about it. And I think if you're asking me for a sleeper, I think Cam Young, and everybody, technically Cam Young is not a sleeper by name, but in terms of odds, he is a sleeper.
There you go. For my pre-year's winner pick, who I actually really like as far as a winner's pick this week, in all honesty, Shane Lowry. I think it's a very viable option. I think if he's going to play anywhere, it could be here. I'm going to preface this. If he withdraws before Thursday, I am swapping this. But currently, one of my main winners pick is going to be Jon Rahm. I'm going to try and get ahead of the curve here. I don't think he's going to be bad 4 majors in a row. But if he withdraws before Thursday, I'm swapping to Tony Finau. And then my quote unquote wild card or my lower tier guy will be Thorbjorn Olesen as far as winners picks go. So
we did it.
We did it. Welcome to the Open, everybody. If you enjoyed this, please drop a follow, drop a like, depending on whether you're on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, whatever it is. Subscribe, drop a follow, drop a comment, whatever is easiest for you guys. Again, we don't do any of this for money. We do this to try and beat the books, and that's our goal at the end of the day. So every time you guys view this on Monday nights and Tuesday mornings, it's really appreciative, and it helps us continue to grow and continue to bring out more and more content week after week.
Let's get it, baby.
All right, with that, let's leave you to it. Happy betting, and we will see you next week.
Deuces.